Hey friends, Ash here with Gen Sense. Hope you're doing well. Today we're talking about Ronnie Coleman levels of beast mode fragrances. I mean, can you get more beast than that? I don't know. We're talking fragrances that can last potentially 24 hours, especially if you go pretty heavy on the trigger. And if you do, I feel bad for anybody that's gonna be around you. You're not just choking people out, you're ruining their days with some of these if you spray it too heavily. Their lungs are just gonna seize up on them when they catch that whiff. But can they really be mad? Because it's gonna smell so good. There are worse ways to go, I guess. 10 fragrances with real ultimate power. Let's jump into it. Now you're a real internet OG if you remember real ultimate power. All right, where to start? Well, let's start with the twofer. And I'll tell you why it's a twofer, because I kind of have to hedge this one a little bit. It's Dior Homme Parfum. Now, the issue with Dior Homme Parfum is that if you're in the United States, good luck finding it for anything under $200. Sometimes, very rarely, it will pop up at discounters, not for a real discount or anything, but to where you can actually buy it, but it sells out so fast that only a few people can get their hands on it. Iris, leather, sandalwood, and oud, some of the notes in the fragrance. This is like the most concentrated, most hardcore form of Dior Homme featuring that iris. And it is fantastic if you like that type of scent. The quality is insane. I absolutely love this fragrance, and quite frankly, I need to buy another bottle of it as soon as I can just to have a backup. Now, realistically, am I gonna use all this up? No, but what if one day I pick it up and drop it and just burst it all over the floor? Actually, I did that years ago to Dior Homme. Oh, so it's possible I do it again. Like I said though, that's close to impossible to find in the US, so I'll also throw in Dior Homme Intense. Not as hardcore. You've got that leather note really coming through in Dior Homme Parfum. You're not gonna get that here. That iris smells amazing. As I've said a million times, creamy, sweet, rich. Some people would say makeup-y or lipsticky. An amazing scent. So we've got a Parfum fragrance and also an intense fragrance that we've featured so far, but what about an extreme fragrance? Yeah, Spicebomb Extreme. It's like a grenade because it's powerful. It's got vanilla, tobacco, spices, and oud as some of the notes in the fragrance, and for me, it is currently the pinnacle of the Spicebomb line. You're getting a lot out of this one. Huge performance, obviously. If it didn't, it wouldn't be in this video, but lasts forever, projects heavily, great versatility in cooler weather. People love this one. I actually find this one easier to wear than the original Spicebomb. It has an additional bit of sweetness from that vanilla, really helps set this one off. Now a lesser known fragrance. This one is from Dunhill, and it is Arabian Desert. Comes in an Icon-ish bottle. The cap looks like from a Dunhill Icon bottle, but then the glass itself is just clear instead of having a similar looking bottle to the cap. So something cool about these fragrances, they are now heavily discounted. When they first came out, I think they were $158 retail. You can now find them at discounters in that like mid 80s to high 70s price range usually. So about half off, give or take a little bit up or down. So you get a higher quality signature line fragrance for a price that's actually lower than most designer fragrances normal retail prices are. So this one is one of those oud trifecta of note fragrances, if you want to call it that, if that's a thing, with saffron, rose, and oud being featured prominently in the scent, along with amber, because saffron, rose, and oud are used together so often. It's like peanut butter and jelly and bread, because you gotta have three things. You also have incense in here, pink pepper, a little bit of bergamot, and it is a very nice fragrance with huge performance and good quality as well. Much better than most of the crap Dunhill's putting out here lately. A lot of Dunhill releases over the past few years haven't been very exciting. I did actually just place an order from FragranceNet for a couple more fragrances in this line, this signature collection. So hopefully those will be just as good as this one. Now another Dior, and it's a big departure from the last scent we just talked about, Sauvage, the Eau de Toilette. Just the original Sauvage. I mean, really, you could put in Sauvage Elixir as well, and maybe Sauvage Eau de Parfum. But Sauvage Eau de Toilette has always performed like a beast off my skin. which has actually gotten me into trouble before. Because there have been times like I was going to the office or a business meeting and I sprayed on a little bit too much of this thinking, man, everybody's gonna love it. It's Dior Sauvage, you know, who cares? Well, the answer to who cares is people that get within 25 feet of you when you decided spraying yourself 10 to 12 times with Dior Sauvage was a good idea. Those people care. Yeah, it's an eau de toilette, but that really doesn't matter. I mean, some people will think, oh, eau de toilette is going to project and perform worse than eau de parfum, which will project and perform worse than parfum. It's not really the case. If you haven't smelled Dior Sauvage, then I'm assuming you've been in a bunker for the last 10 years or something. But in case you have been living in a bunker and you don't know how it smells, it's got bergamot, ambroxan, a lot of it, Sichuan pepper and black pepper, a metallic fruity opening. And as it dries down, that ambroxan really comes out to shine with a bit of lavender and that fresh spice. Big compliment puller, great versatility. Sauvage, a big time performer. From there, we head on to Initio, Oud for Greatness. This one they have at twistedlily.com along with a bunch of other niche fragrances that they're adding all the time, new ones. If you ever shop on there, use the code GENTS10, save yourself 10% off. That's for the whole site. This one has, of course, oud, along with saffron, nutmeg, and patchouli, some of the other notes in the fragrance. It is quite pricey, not cheap at all. So yeah, that 10% off could help, but it's still gonna be expensive. Now, thankfully, if you really like this, but you don't have the money to get this, there are some pretty good alternatives to it. Your best bet is probably Afnan Supremacy in Oud, but there's also a fragrance called Oud for Glory, which is good as well. The saffron gives you a lot of sweetness off the top here, which helps counteract that oud. It never goes off into, you know, overly funky territory. And that gives this a lot of wearability, which is why people like it so much. It has enormous, insane performance, and then enough wearability that even though it's quite unique, at least compared to what most people are smelling nowadays, you know, designer-wise, it still has that compliment factor. And that's really helped push this forward and make it one of the biggest hyped niche fragrances over the past few years. Let's go from Oud for Glory to Joop Homme. I don't know why, you know, the transition from there to here, but who cares? Now, Joop Homme is kind of an old foe of mine. I hated this fragrance for a long time, like really, really, really hated it. Not one of those things where you just say, oh yeah, I hate that, man. No, hated it. And then a while back, I did give it some more sprays to see, you know, hey, is it as bad as I remembered? And at the time I thought, no, it's not as bad as I remember. But I'll tell you guys, in wearing since that video, I still don't really like it. Now I appreciate this for being a classic fragrance. At this point, you've got to say this is a classic scent. How many people wore this? How many fragrances this inspired? Classic. It's got similarities to Mont Blanc's Individual and Original Santal from Creed. So those are like the three amigos, you could say. You could pair those up together. They're like little brethren, second cousins or something, first cousins. It's got Tonka, vanilla, cinnamon, and heliotrope, along with a bunch of other notes. And it was a big club hit for a time. You know, a night out fragrance that would get people's attention, and it would. A fragrance that bridged the end of the 80s to the beginning of the 90s. Joop Homme, like I said, a classic, even though if for me, I'd probably rather leave it in the bottle. After that, a Montale Red Aoud, and I got a 50 ml size bottle, which looks stupid, and I hate it. This is the only 50 milliliter that I own from Montale, and it will be the only 50 milliliter that I own. It looks like a baby's bottle, like a baby doll, actually. It looks like a little toy bottle for a baby doll.
Oh, this is my Montale.
Guess what? It's got rose, oud, and saffron in it. Yep, trifecta once again. It also has sandalwood, orris, and vetiver as some of the other notes in the fragrance. And this is one of those classic Montale oud scents. When you think Montale, you think oud. This one, though, is not overly masculine. A lot of the oud fragrances Montale has are. This one is more unisex. Some people would even say it leans a little bit feminine, but that's because the oud here isn't as overpowering or screechy as it can be with other Montale fragrances. Because Montale ouds sometimes are screechy to the point you spray them on, you catch a whiff, and it just hits you hard. And some people like that, you know? It's like hot sauce or something. Some people like hot sauce to flavor. Other people like hot sauce to absolutely blow their nose off their face and also blow their back end out when they go to the bathroom. So some people dig that screechiness, but most people really don't. And even though it's not as heavy or funky and it does have a decent amount of sweetness to it, it still has big time performance. From there, we're hopping over to Tom Ford's Black Orchid Parfum. Black Orchid is a fragrance that's marketed technically towards women. So if you look at everything from Tom Ford, it says, hey, this is a fragrance for ladies. But in actuality, lots of guys wear it. Truffle is going to be one of the main notes in this fragrance, along with a bit of plum in the opening, so you get this dark, fruity sweetness there. It has rum. I think they actually technically call it like a golden rum, which makes sense with this bottle here, and also patchouli in the base. Very, very, very expensive, which makes sense. It is a Tom Ford, and it's one of their higher-end Tom Fords that's not in their private blend line. A deeper, maybe slightly smoother take on the original Black Orchid, and that one as well could make this list because that one also has great performance. After that, Ultramall from Jean Paul Gaultier. One of the easier fragrances to wear in this entire list. I'd say this one, Dior Sauvage and Spicebomb Extreme, the easiest to wear. Ultramall is very sweet. Great night out fragrance, great date night fragrance, but also with enough versatility that you could really pull it off in fall, winter, or spring. It's a great compliment puller, and it was a hype beast when it first came out. And it works just as well today as when it was first released as well. So it still deserves a bit of love, a bit of hype. Performance is great, absolutely nothing to complain about there. And because it is loved by so many people and I've gotten such great reactions from it, it's one of those ones I like to bust out from time to time, even with this huge collection. It's also one of my wife's favorites. In one of the first videos that we did together, years ago, don't remember when exactly, she went through my collection and picked out her 5 absolute favorite fragrances, period. And that was one of them. Last but not least, Encre Noire All Extreme from Lalique. Now, of everything I've covered today, this is the biggest bang for your buck. This you can find usually around $25 to $30 at discounters. It has cypress, elemi, benzoin, incense, and of course, vetiver. Obviously, it has a strong similarity to the original Encre Noire, which a lot of people would say has a strong similarity to Sycamore from Chanel. Now, obviously, if you pair it up side by side with Sycamore, Sycamore is higher quality. I have an old bottle of that, an eau de toilette bottle of Sycamore that has just the tiniest amount left. Obviously, there are differences if you spray them side by side, but if you're talking about a budget alternative to Sycamore, probably really can't do any better than Encre Noire or this one, because they are close enough that when you spray them on, if you're familiar with one fragrance or the other, you'll say, oh yeah, I get the similarity there. Absolutely amazing value. The longevity here is great, lasts forever. The projection is maybe not as heavy as some of these other ones here today, or really most of the other ones here today, but it doesn't matter because the bang for the buck makes up for it and the longevity's still there. If you're a fan of vetiver, you need to check this one out for the price. It is a steal. There we go, 10 fragrances that can last 24 hours. Especially if you spray them on your clothes. Then they're not gonna last 24 hours, they'll last 24 days, 24 years. Thank you guys for hanging with me. Thank you for your support. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you tomorrow with another fragrance video. See you guys later.